On behalf of the teachers,
Call is now being recorded.
okay. On behalf of the teachers and students of the Department of Economics, I am welcoming respected Principal Madam, respected faculty members, and dear students in the first day of the student seminar of the Department of Economics on contemporary issues of Indian economy. Today we have four student presentators from Economics Honors third year and sixth semester. But before starting the presentation session, I am requesting our respected Principal Madam Dr. Shoma Bandyopadhyay, who has always motivated us for organizing this kind of student seminar, to kindly say a few words. Madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kundu. Good afternoon to all of you, all the teachers, my colleagues, and my dear students. I would like to congratulate Department of Economics for arranging this kind of seminar, which will be a good platform for the students to share their ideas, to prove themselves in this virtual platform, and other students of different departments, if they have joined, or the students of Department of Economics also will have an opportunity to get enriched, and they will again try to do this kind of seminar in future, I'm sure. And I wish this seminar a grand success. Thank you all.
Thank you, Madam, for your encouraging words. Now I am requesting respected coordinator of the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of the college, Dr. Kuntal Chattopadhyay, to say a few words.
Thank you, Professor Kundu. It's going to be a very engrossing evening session, I believe, because of the overall theme that you have suggested, issues relating to contemporary Indian economy. We are looking forward to young presenters and their thoughts. Thank you very much for organizing this kind of a program, and welcome to all the presenters, to all the faculty members. We are here to hear you, and let us see if certain things can be learned from the learners. We are very hopeful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we will start our presentation session. I am requesting my departmental colleague, Dr. Niladri De, to conduct this presentation session.
Thank you, Dr. Kundu. Uh, Good afternoon, respected Principal Madam. Uh, Good afternoon, respected IQAC Coordinator Dr. Kuntal Chattopadhyay, and all my colleagues in this college, and all the dear students. Uh, Principal Madam always encouraging us to conduct all the this kind of seminars. So many seminars, other departments, they have already been conducted. So now it's our turn to conduct this seminar. So we are planning to conduct this seminar uh, in 2 days. Today we have four speakers. Uh, I'm just calling the names of these four speakers: Ipsita Chori, Anindo Bandyopadhyay, Mehnaz Midda, and Rohan Das. The first paper will be presented by Ipsita Chori. Ipsita, please present your paper. Thank you.
নমস্কার, আমার নাম ইপসিতা চরিক। এখানে উপস্থিত মাননীয় প্রিন্সিপাল ম্যাম এবং সমস্ত টিচারদের নমস্কার জানিয়ে আজকে আমার প্রেজেন্টেশনটি শুরু করছি। আমার প্রেজেন্টেশনটির মূল বক্তব্য হচ্ছে অ্যানালাইসিস অফ চাইল্ড লেবার ইন ইন্ডিয়া। প্রথমেই আসছি ইন্ট্রোডাকশন। Children are the greatest gift
Ipshita, you are not audible.
হ্যালো
Yes, you are audible. Ipsita, please go ahead.
হ্যাঁ স্যার সরি আমার একটু নেট প্রবলেমের জন্য হয়ে গেছিলাম আমি শেয়ার করছি স্ক্রিনটা স্যার স্ক্রিনটা কি দেখা যাচ্ছে
Yes, it's visible.
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার নমস্কার আমি ইপসিতা চরে এখানে উপস্থিত আমার মাননীয় প্রিন্সিপাল ম্যাম এবং সমস্ত টিচার্সদের নমস্কার জানিয়ে আজকে আমার প্রেজেন্টেশনটি শুরু করছি আমার প্রেজেন্টেশনটির মূল বক্তব্য হলো অ্যানালাইসিস অফ চাইল্ড লেবার ইন ইন্ডিয়া প্রথমেই আসছি ইন্ট্রোডাকশনে Children are the greatest gift to humanity, and childhood is an important and impressionable stage of human development as it holds the potential to the future development of any society. এটি আমাদের কাউর অজানা নয় যে বিভিন্ন ইকোনমিক ডিস্ট্রেসের কারণে বাচ্চাদের পোস্ট করা হয় এডুকেশনাল অপরচুনিটিস ছেড়ে জবেতে যোগদান করার জন্য এর ফলে তারা বিভিন্ন আনপেড এবং বিপজ্জনক কাজের সঙ্গে জড়িয়ে পড়ে It is therefore no wonder that the poor household predominantly send their childhood to work in early stages of their life. One of the disconcerting aspects of child labor is that children are sent to work at the expense of education. According to the International Labour Organization World Report on Child Labor 2015, around 168 million children are trapped in child labor. In India, as per Census 2011, the number of working children in the age group of 5 to 14 years has further reduced to 43.53 lakh. It shows that the efforts of the government have grown the desired fruits. But despite this, still a major section of child population continues to work under the banner of child labor. এবার আসছি objectives of studies to have an idea of incidence of child labor, to compare between the states regarding the incidence of child labor, to find out the determinants of child labor, to examine the growth rate of child labor in India over the time, to suggest policy prescription. আমি এবার আসছি মেথোডোলজিতে এখানে মেথোডোলজিতে ইউজ করেছি আমি স্পিয়ারসম্যান র্যাঙ্ক কোরিলেশন কোএফিসিয়েন্ট পিয়ারসনস কোরিলেশন কোএফিসিয়েন্ট t-test for significance of observed correlation coefficient indicator of educational infrastructure at primary level and regression এবার আমি আসছি অ্যানালাইসিসে এই ডায়াগ্রামটি শো করছে স্টেট ওয়াইজ ডিটেলস অফ ওয়ার্কিং ইন দা এজ অফ গ্রুপ অফ 5 to 14 ইয়ার্স এখানে কমলা রঙের বা অরেঞ্জ কালারটি শো করছে 2011 ডেটা অফ চাইল্ড লেবার অ্যান্ড এখানে রেড কালারটি শো করছে 2014 data of child labor. According to this diagram, as per census 2011, Uttar Pradesh topped the list with 20.69% and Lakshadweep took the last place with the lowest 0.002% in the table of child labor. Most popular states like Maharashtra 11.41%, Delhi 10.60%, West Bengal 5.38% and Madhya Pradesh 6.57% are ranked second, 17th, 19th, and 5th respectively. In 2014, the child labor in Uttar Pradesh has increased from 20.69% to 22.69%, and Uttar Pradesh took the first place in the table. West Bengal has risen from 19th rank to 6th rank in the table of child labor percentage. আমি এখানে একটি র্যাঙ্ক কোরিলেশন কোফিশিয়েন্ট রান করেছি 2011 এবং 2014 এর ডেটার সঙ্গে, যে কোরিলেশনটি হচ্ছে +0.98 এবং এটি হাইলি সিগনিফিকেন্ট পেয়েছি। From this significantly correlation, it is understood that states are in the same place as in 2014, where they were in 2011. That means there was no development for child labor in states of India between 2011 and 2014. So the number of child labor has increased from 2011 to 2014. The government needs to pay more attention to develop so the states improve and the number of child labor decreases later. এবার আসছি growth rate of child labor between 2011 and 2014. এই ডেটাটি শো করছে 2011 এবং 2014 এর মধ্যে চাইল্ড লেবারের গ্রোথ রেট। In this diagram, the growth rate of child labor in India is 29.67% between 2011 to 2014. Himachal Pradesh had the highest growth rate with a 72.82%. Educated states like Kerala have 33.26% and less educated states like Bihar have 34% in the growth rate of child labor. The growth rate decreases in Andhra Pradesh with -7.3%. In more popular states like Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra, child labor has grown in 35.4%, 28.6%, and 11.8% respectively between 2011 to 2014. Less popular states like Goa, Daman and Diu, Dadar and Nagar Haveli have experienced 13%, 3%, and 21% in growth rate of child labor. এবার আসছি rank of child labor and school dropout of different states. এই টেবিলটি শো করছে বিভিন্ন রাজ্যের র্যাঙ্ক অফ চাইল্ড লেবার এবং র্যাঙ্ক অফ ড্রপ আউট। এখানে বিহারের র্যাঙ্ক অফ চাইল্ড লেবারের দিক থেকে সেকেন্ড পজিশনে আছে, সেখানে 13 পজিশনে আছে র্যাঙ্ক অফ ড্রপ আউটের দিক থেকে। ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল 6 পজিশনে আছে র্যাঙ্ক অফ চাইল্ড লেবারের দিক থেকে, সেখানে 22 পজিশনে আছে র্যাঙ্ক অফ ড্রপ আউটের দিক থেকে। স্কুল ড্রপ আউটের সঙ্গে চাইল্ড লেবারের সম্পর্কটি বা চাইল্ড লেবার স্কুল ড্রপ আউটের উপর নির্ভর করে কিনা সেটি দেখার জন্য আমি এখানে স্পিয়ারসম্যান র্যাঙ্ক কোরিলেশন কোফিশিয়েন্ট রান করেছি, যেটি আমার এসেছে +0.22। এই সাইনটি পজিটিভ, যেটি ইন্ডিকেট করছে যে তাদের মধ্যে সম্পর্কটি ডাইরেক্ট, অর্থাৎ যদি স্কুল ড্রপ আউট রেট বাড়ে তাহলে চাইল্ড লেবার বাড়বে। এটি আমার সিগনিফিকেন্ট আসেনি, তাও আরো শিওর হওয়ার জন্য আমি রিগ্রেশন ক্যালকুলেশন করেছি। রিগ্রেশন ইকুয়েশনটি হলো y = 14.285 plus 0.23x. So government should take some policies to reduce percentage of school dropout, then child labor will be decreases. এবার আসছি এডুকেশনাল ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচার অ্যাট প্রাইমারি লেভেল। এখানে আমি এই ইন্ডেক্সটি তৈরি করেছি দেখার জন্য চাইল্ড লেবার কি এডুকেশনাল ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচার অ্যাট প্রাইমারি লেভেলের উপর নির্ভর করে কি। এই ইন্ডেক্সটি তৈরি করার জন্য আমি কিছু ইন্ডিকেটর নিয়েছি। ইন্ডিকেটরগুলি হলো টিচার স্টুডেন্ট রেশিও, পার্সেন্টেজ অফ স্কুলস হ্যাভিং সেপারেট গার্লস টয়লেট, পার্সেন্টেজ অফ স্কুলস হ্যাভিং ড্রিঙ্কিং ওয়াটার, পার্সেন্টেজ অফ স্কুলস হ্যাভিং বিল্ডিং and percentage of schools having electricity. এই ডায়াগ্রাম অনুযায়ী বিভিন্ন রাজ্যের ভারতের এখানে শো করাতে চেয়েছি যে এডুকেশনাল ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচার অ্যাট প্রাইমারি লেভেল অবস্থাটা কি রকম। এখানে কর্ণাটকা, কেরালা, তামিলনাড়ু, ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলের মতো রাজ্যগুলিতে এডুকেশনাল ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচার অ্যাট প্রাইমারি লেভেল উন্নত মানের, সেখানে আসাম, বিহার, উত্তর প্রদেশের মতো রাজ্যগুলিতে এডুকেশনাল ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচার অ্যাট প্রাইমারি লেভেল কম উন্নত মানের। চাইল্ড লেবার কি এডুকেশনাল ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচার অ্যাট প্রাইমারি লেভেলের উপর ডিপেন্ড করে সেটি দেখার জন্য আমি এখানে পিয়ারসন্স কোরিলেশন কোফিশিয়েন্ট রান করেছি, যেটি আমার এসেছে -0.06। এখানে সাইনটি নেগেটিভ আসায় ইন্ডিকেট করছে যে তাদের মধ্যে সম্পর্কটি ইনভার্স। তার মানে যদি প্রাইমারি এডুকেশনাল ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচার যদি উন্নত হয় তাহলে চাইল্ড লেবার কমানো যেতে পারে। আরো শিওর হওয়ার জন্য আমি রিগ্রেশন ক্যালকুলেশন করেছি। রিগ্রেশন ইকুয়েশনটি হলো y ইকুয়ালস টু 5.446858 মাইনাস 0.024x। এর দ্বারা আমি বলতে পারি যে গভর্নমেন্টকে আরো কিছু এফেক্টিভ পলিসিস গ্রহণ করতে হবে যাতে প্রাইমারি এডুকেশনাল ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচারকে উন্নত করার মাধ্যমে চাইল্ড লেবারকে কমানো যায়। এবার আসছি ফিমেল লিটারেসিতে। কথায় আছে মায়েরা শিক্ষিত হলে তাদের সন্তানরা কখনো অশিক্ষিত হয় না, কারণ শিক্ষিত মায়ের সন্তানরা কখনো চাইল্ড লেবারের সঙ্গে যুক্ত থাকতে পারে না। এই ডায়াগ্রামটিতে আমি শো করিয়েছি ভারতের বিভিন্ন রাজ্যের ফিমেল লিটারেসি কিরকম। কেরালা 88% has the highest female literacy rate in India, where Bihar 60% has the lowest female literacy in India. West Bengal has 73% of female literacy rate. এখানে চাইল্ড লেবার কি ফিমেল লিটারেসি রেটের উপর নির্ভর করে সেটি দেখার জন্য আমি একটি পিয়ারসন্স কোরিলেশন কোএফিসিয়েন্ট রান করেছি, যেটি আমার এসেছে -0.58 এবং এই কোরিলেশনটি আমার হাইলি সিগনিফিকেন্ট। এই নেগেটিভ সাইনটি ইন্ডিকেট করে তাদের মধ্যে সম্পর্কটি ইনভার্স। তার মানে যদি ফিমেল লিটারেসিকে আমি বাড়াতে পারি তাহলে চাইল্ড লেবারকে কমাতে পারবো। এছাড়াও আমি আরো শিওর হওয়ার জন্য রিগ্রেশন রান করেছি। এখানে আমি রিগ্রেশন থেকে পেয়েছি 1% পয়েন্ট যদি আমি ফিমেল লিটারেসি রেটকে বাড়াতে পারি তাহলে 0.34% পয়েন্ট আমি চাইল্ড লেবারকে কমাতে পারবো। তাই এটি দেখে আমি বলতে পারি যে গভর্নমেন্টকে কিছু খুব এফেক্টিভ পলিসিস গ্রহণ করতে হবে যাতে ফিমেল লিটারেসিকে বাড়ানোর মাধ্যমে চাইল্ড লেবারকে কমানো যায়। এবার আমি আসছি কনক্লুশনে। The rank relationship between child labor in 2011 and 2014 shows a significantly positive sign that the states of India did not develop between 2011 and 2014. Because government did not adopt such effective policies, the government has to adopt a strict policy to reduce child labor next time. The analysis further reveals that a positive correlation of school dropout with child labor has been found, so that the government has to adopt a policy to reduce the number of child labor and school dropout in those states of India in future. The analysis shows that the index of educational infrastructure at primary level that I have created has found a negative correlation coefficient with child labor. That means if the educational infrastructure at primary level improves, the number of child labor will decrease. Government should adopt some policies to improve educational infrastructure at primary level so the number of child labor to reduce. According to this analysis, the correlation and regression found a significant negative relationship with female literacy rate and child labor. The regression shows that 1% point increase if the female literacy rate can reduce child labor by 0.34% point. Therefore, I suggest from the analysis that the government should pay strict attention to increase the female literacy rate so that the number of child labor can be reduced. Thank you.
Thank you, Sita, for your nice presentation. You have covered a very thank you. You have covered a very wide area, and child labor definitely is a very pertinent issue and very challenging issues from the government sides, and it's a very big problem in our country till now. So we covered so many areas. Now, if there is any question from the audience side, you can directly put your questions to Sita from the audience side. Please raise your question if you have. Okay, I hope there is no question. Ipsita, I have a question to you.
Yes,
you have taken 2011 and 2014.
Yes, sir.
So have you taken these 2 years intentionally, or is there any logic behind these the 2 years? Why you have taken 2011 and 2014? Because after 2014 there is a we have economy, our economy has been developed, so we have faced so many problems in our country. So why you have taken 2011 and 2014? So it is intentional or is any other logic? Is your answer?
স্যার, স্যার অ্যান্সার দিতে পারি?
Yes, yes, please.
স্যার 2011 এন্ড 2014 এর ডেটাটা স্যার ইন্টারনেটে এবং আমার অ্যানালাইসিসের ক্ষেত্রে স্যার অনেকটা কাজে দিয়েছে, কারণ এটা ইন্টারনেটে স্যার সহজে স্যার অ্যাভেলেবেল ছিল। এছাড়াও স্যার 2011 এ স্যার আমি একটা খুব বড় একটা ডেটা পেয়েছি যেটাতে আমি খুব ভালো কভার করতে পেরেছি, এবং 2014 এর মধ্যে আমি দেখাতে চেয়েছিলাম স্যার গ্রোথ রেটটা কিরকম এবং আমাদের ইন্ডিয়া কতটা কি চাইল্ড লেবারের দিক থেকে উন্নত করেছে। তাই জন্য স্যার আমি 2011 এন্ড 2014 এর ডেটাটা স্যার নিয়েছি।
Okay, okay. Thank you, Ipsita. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Now I would request Anindo Bandyopadhyay to present your paper. Anindo, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, my all respective teachers and my dearest friends. আজকে আমার topic migration in India, a special focus on West Bengal. The main focus of the study is to investigate the changing pattern of migration in different states of India over the years. With the help of the secondary data collected from different sources, the project throws light on the issue of changing pattern of out-migration from West Bengal during 1991 to 2001. It is revealed that West Bengal is still a net migrating state, but the out-migration rate, particularly that of male, has increased over the decades. The pattern of out-migration also seemed to be very interesting as more people migrated to the distant states like Maharashtra, Delhi and Haryana, which constituted more than one-third of total out-migrants. Interestingly, female migration due to marriage decreased from 1991 to 2001, whereas male migration for work employment has increased over time. In introduction, migration is a universal phenomenon in recent years. According to National Survey Organization NSSO 2008, migration is a household member whose last usual place of residence any time in the past was different from the present place of enumeration, was considered as the migrant's member in a household. According to the census, a person is considered as a migrant by the place of residence if the place in which he or she is enumerated during the census is other than his place of intermediate last residence. The United Nations Migration Agency IOM 1951 defines a migrant as any person who is moving or has moved across an international border or within a state away from his or her habitual place of residence, regardless of the person's legal status, whether the movement is voluntary or involuntary. The present study shows the changing pattern of out, in and net migration in each of the states of India, including the census years 1991, 2001 and 2011. There is a special focus on the changing pattern of out-migration from West Bengal and the reasons for out-migration. The project proceeds in the following manner. Section 2 represents the survey of literature review on the topic and the objective. Section 3 represents the data and methodology, and Section 4 describes the analysis part of the project, followed by conclusion. In literature review, the first literature on migration, as per my knowledge, is published by the British demographer Ravenstein 1885 and 1889, which was based on British census of 1881. One of the best known works on this topic is Lee 1966, who reviewed Ravenstein's laws of migration. According to Ravenstein's laws of migration, most migrants move only a short distance. World Bank 1984 has highlighted that the rural population migrate to cities not so much to avail themselves of the employment opportunities and other facilities in urban areas, but more to avoid problems in the rural areas. In India, the volume of migration increased over various census periods from 159.6 million in 1971 to 2001 million in 1981, 226 million in 1991, 309 million in 2001, and 453.6 million in 2011. Todaro, in his theory, explains the paradoxical relationship between accelerated rural-urban migration in the context of rising unemployment, which was come to be known as Todaro migration model. According to Borges, 1989, of the three questions that the economic theory of migration addressed is what factors determine the direction, size, and the composition of immigration flow. This paper focuses on the relationship local economic security factors, outmigration or immigration in Mexico. According to Misra and Puri 2013, in India, about 60% of migrants make intra-district moves. The second most common type of migrants is those who move between districts. Finally, this paper shows the changing pattern of migration in the states of India, including West Bengal in three census years 1991, 2001, and 2011. But while showing the migration pattern in 2011, I faced a problem as the Census of India does not provide the migration data properly. So here the stream-wise data of migration was taken. So 2011 data analysis based on stream-wise data analysis. Objectives of the study. The present study has the following objectives. Number one, to highlight the changing pattern of interstate migration and stream-wise migration from West Bengal for different census years starting from 1991. And another is that to investigate the reasons for outmigration from West Bengal to other states or union territories of India. In database and methodology, to analyze the above mentioned objectives, the study relies on the secondary sources of data, mainly the Census of India data. Migration tables, DCDs tables, etc. have been taken from that data source. For this purpose of the study, data are used from census years 1991, 2001 and 2011. According to census definition, we know that a person is considered as a migrant by place of last residence if the place in which he or she is enumerated during the census is other than his place to intermediate last residence. As per the place of last residence or birth and place of enumeration, internal migrants can be classified into three migration streams which are roughly indicative of distance of migration. Number one, intra-district migrants, person with last residence outside the place of enumeration but within the same district. Number two, inter-district migrants, person with last residence outside the district of enumeration but within the same state. And the last, interstate migrants, person with last residence in India but beyond the state of enumeration. The present study mainly focused on the interstate migrants. Here, we use some equation or notation like rates, ratio, and percentage, etc. using sample statistic technique. Then we describe these formulas one by one. Net migration equal to in-migration minus out-migration. In-migration rate, share of in-migration equal to total in-migrants in the states into 100 whole divided by total population at the state. Out-migration rate, share of out-migration equal to total out-migrants in the state into 100 whole divided by total population at the state. The total number of out-migration stream-wise equal to total number of rural to rural migrants plus total number of rural to urban migrants plus total number of urban to rural migrants plus total number of urban to rural migrants. Share of total in-out migrant, number of in-out migration into 100 the whole divided by total number of in-out migration. In this project, statistical analysis include various charts and diagrams, mainly column diagram, as it is used to represent data, and using charts and diagrams, we can easily show some difference. In migrants, out migrants and net migrants in different states of India, including West Bengal in 1991, 2001 and 2011. In migration means the process of people coming into a new area. So here, according to the year 1991, Maharashtra stands in the top of the list of the in-migrating state, having 0.86 million in-migrants, followed by Delhi 0.84 million, Gujarat 0.37 million, Madhya Pradesh 0.40 million, Karnataka 0.31 million, Punjab 0.25 million, which are experiencing the high number of in-migration. Especially Maharashtra and Delhi have the highest number of immigrants from different states because Delhi is the administrative capital and Mumbai is the business capital in India. According to the year 2001, we see that till Maharashtra stands in the top of the list of immigrating state, having total 3.2 million immigrants, which means it increases more than triple compared to the previous situation because of fast development and infrastructure building. The second important state where immigration is very high is Delhi, having 2.2 million immigrants, which is almost triple compared to the previous situation. Other states are having more or less very high number of immigrants are Haryana 1.2 million, Gujarat 1.1 million, Uttar Pradesh 1.1 million, Karnataka 0.89 million, etc. So comparing the two census year, it is noticed that more or less in all states of India, the total number of migrants increases. Here Maharashtra and Delhi play a great role in In case of immigration, it indicates that the two states are growing very fast, and here job opportunities, education opportunities are high. That's why people are migrated in these states. In out-migration, according to the year 1991, Uttar Pradesh stands at the top of the list of the out-migrating states, having 1.3 million out-migrants or immigrants, followed by Bihar 0.69 million, Rajasthan 0.33 million, Tamil Nadu 0.31 million. According to the year 2001, Uttar Pradesh stands in the top of the list of the out-migrating states, having almost 3.8 million out-migrants to the different states of India from UP. So, we can say that UP is still less developed compared to other states like Delhi, Maharashtra, etc. After Uttar Pradesh, Bihar has witnessed significant outflow of migrants, having 2.2 million migrants. Outmigration occurs because of less opportunity for jobs, education, and other reasons. In-migration and out-migration are very high due to some socio-economic reasons. According to 2011 data analysis, Uttar Pradesh is still the top most outmigrating state, having 11.7 million outmigrants. The second most important state, having a high number of outmigrants flowing from an area to another area within the state, is Bihar 7.4 million, followed by Rajasthan 3.5 million. All these states are basically poor and dependent on agriculture for survival, and agriculture mainly depends only on the monsoon. There are not sufficient secondary and service sector to absorb rural labor force, that because there exists increased unemployment. That means their marginal productivity is zero, so the wage rate of the workers is low, for this standard of living of the people are low. In net migration, according to the year 1991, the top most negative net migrant state is Uttar Pradesh, having minus 1.1 million net migrants. Means outflow of migrants are high than inflow, followed by Bihar having minus 0.59 million migration outflows towards different developed states. Other states having negative net migration are Rajasthan minus 0.11 million, Tamil Nadu minus 0.17 million, etc. As well as there are some positive net migrating states such as Delhi having 0.73 million net migrants, followed by Maharashtra having 0.54 million net migrants. Maharashtra, and in 1991 census period, 861,601 people is migrated into Maharashtra, but 320,428 people are migrated away Maharashtra, whereas in Delhi 841,058 people were migrated into Delhi, yet it is less than that of Maharashtra, but 109071 people were migrated away from Delhi, which is less than Maharashtra. So that's why Delhi stands in the top position of net migration in India. Other states having positive net migration are Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Karnataka, etc. According to year 2001, the top most negative net migration states are Uttar Pradesh having minus 2.6 million net migrants, and Bihar having minus 1.7 million net migrants. And the top most positive net migration states are Maharashtra having 2.3 million net migrants, followed by Delhi 1.7 million net migrants. But here the interesting result is that Maharashtra grows at a very first rate, because in 1991 it is in the second position, but in 10 years it is in the first position. Gujarat, Haryana also have high positive net migrants. There are some notable states where in migration as well as out-migration rate is low, like Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Mizoram, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Meghalaya, Odisha, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal. Earlier, the state like West Bengal received heavy migrants, but it is declined during the last two census years. The 2001 census data shows that the share of total migrants is 4.37, where it was 5.78 in 1991. The main reason in West Bengal is experiencing a declining trend to industrialization and opportunities for migration. It is the state which has a high number of sick industries. Changing pattern of out-migration from West Bengal to other major states in India in 1991, 2001 and 2011. The migration flows to West Bengal from different parts of the Indian continent is an old phenomenon which can be traced back to the beginning of the 19th centuries, when the proceeds of urbanization began in areas of eastern India based on Kolkata city. Historically, Kolkata was developed by the British as a port city. It was also the seat of colonial administration and the center of colonial trade. Industrial growth was also observed in the surrounding area of Kolkata, as it had facilities such as an inland waterway facilities, port facilities, etc. Therefore, Kolkata has been the main city of eastern part of the country since the first, and played an important role in attracting the massive population of the surrounding states as well as other parts of the country. So from the outset, there was a flow of migrants in the state of West Bengal from the other parts of the country. But the scenario has changed a lot during the decade. Now, more and more people have migrated to other states, even to distant states. The volume of migrants shared by different states is shown in this figure. It provides a mixed scenario where some of the surrounding states like Bihar, Odisha, Uttar Pradesh and Assam, along with the states like Maharashtra and Delhi, sheltered the majority of the out migrants from West Bengal. However, gender deviation of the migrants brings out that females dominate the short distance migration, whereas males dominate the long distance migration. Male migration is very pronounced in the economically developed states like Maharashtra, Delhi and Haryana. Pattern and characteristics of the out-migration in West Bengal stream-wise. Percent distribution of lifetime out-migrants from the state of West Bengal to other states, union territories of India of each sex by migration streams 1991 to 2001. There are four types of migration such as rural to rural, rural to urban, urban to urban and urban to rural. There we get an interesting result that male outmigration is high in case of urban to urban migration, but female outmigration is high in case of rural to rural. The propensity to migration, particularly from rural areas, has increased by 7 points over the decade. Data analysis of outmigration in different states of India in 2011. Here it is observed that Uttar Pradesh has the highest number of outmigrants in every stream except urban to rural system. In this stream, Maharashtra stands in the top. In rural to rural case, Uttar Pradesh has the highest migrants, almost 1.8 million migrants, followed by Bihar 1.4 million, Madhya Pradesh 1.1 million, etc. In rural to urban stream, Uttar Pradesh still stands in the top position, having 6.5 million migrants, followed by Bihar 4.07 million, etc. An interesting result is found in urban to rural stream that here the topmost state is Maharashtra, not Uttar Pradesh, having 0.31 million migrants, followed by West Bengal 0.23 million. The last one, urban to urban, is the most predominant stream. Here also UP stands in the top, having almost 2.9 million migrants, followed by Bihar 1.3 million, Maharashtra 1.2 million, Delhi 1.1 million. Reason of migration. The important thing of studying migration is to find out the reasons for migration. The question for reasons of migration was first discussed in the 1981 census year, but this was confined only to the migrants by last residence and not by place of birth. The same list of reasons continued in 1991 and 2001 census, except the reason business was added in 1991 and the reason natural calamities. For instance, natural disasters closely related to climate change such as storms, drought, extreme high temperature have been boosting migration, was dropped from the list in 2001. An additional reason was also added in the list on moved after birth. Here table 9 and 10 shows the reason for migration in 1991 and 2001. It is observed that in 1991 male migrants are high due to work employment 36.4% as well as 2001 37.6%. In 1991, male migrants is also high due to family move 30.4%, which is further depends on persons migrating due to work and employment. In case of female migrants, the reason is almost the same in two census years. Marriage 65.9% in 1991, 64.9% in 2001. So here it is observed that the reason for migration are the same for almost every census year. Then for 2011, the reason are more or less same. In conclusion, the study derives that the migration is a function of push and pull factors. The pull factors of better job facility, good salary, more income, medical and education facilities are attracting the rural people. The push factors of no job facilities, less income, low salary and drought, less medical and educational facilities are the push factors that have forced the rural people to move to rural to urban areas, that is from less developed areas. In 1991, 2000 and 2011, an out-migration states from West Bengal to other states or union territory over the decade 1991 to 2001. And the reason for migration, here the discussion is based on the four migration streams such as rural to rural, rural to urban, urban to urban, urban to rural, where in migration urban to urban stream is the most predominant, while rural to rural flow of our migration for women was predominant. Another important fact is that the southern states, namely Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, were least migrating states, as urban areas offer more job opportunities than the rural areas. The maximum percentage of migrants migrated to the urban areas of these states. Nearly 3/4 of total male migrants and half of total female migrants migrated to the urban areas, and the rural to urban migration stream recorded the highest increase over the decade. Out of the total interstate outmigrants from West Bengal to other states, union territories, male migration is high for work employment over the 2 census years, while marriage is the most important reason for female migrants. There is a contradiction here. In 2001, the female outmigration is occurred for family move, not for marriage. I would like to express my special thanks and gratitude to our respected principal, Dr. Soma Bandyopadhyay, and my all respective economics teachers and the other teachers also for giving me the opportunity to do this project and gave me the guidance throughout. It was a great pleasure for me to undertake this project on migration. I would also like to thank my friends who provide me with all the necessities and help me finalize this project within the limited time frame. The time I spent while doing this project was really full of excitement as I got to broaden my knowledge a lot. It was a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Anindo, for a very good presentation on the migration, specifically focusing on the West Bengal. You have focused on the very large areas, starting from the Tudorian concept on the migration, especially the rural-urban migration. Then you have covered the areas of the inward migration, outward migration. You have compared the migrational pattern in West Bengal with that of the other states in India. The variation in the migrational pattern. You also focused on the not only on the rural-urban migration, but from these also considered the cases of the urban to urban migration, urban to rural migration, all these things. So thank you. If there is any question from the audience side, you can put your question directly to Anindo. Yes, if there is any question. Anyone want to ask any question? Okay, I hope there is no question. So, Anindo, thank you very much for your presentation.
Welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now I request Mehnad Nidda to present your paper. Mehnad, please.
Good evening to our respected principal madam and all the teachers present here. Our projected topic হলো household income and consumption pattern in India. আমরা জানি ইন্ডিয়াতে পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি 2004-05 এ ছিল 24,143, যেটা বেড়ে 39,904 হয়েছে 2011-12 এ। 2011-12 এর পার্সেন্টেজ অফ পপুলেশন বিলো পভার্টি লাইন 22% ডিক্রিজ করেছে, যেটা 37% ছিল 2004-05 এ। তাই আমার অবজেক্টিভস হচ্ছে ইন্ডিয়াতে যে সমস্ত ইকোনমিক চেঞ্জেসগুলো হয়েছে সেটাকে হাইলাইট করেছি। ফার্স্ট আমি এখানে পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি এবং তার গ্রোথকে মেজার করেছি। সেকেন্ড 2004-05 থেকে 2011-12 পর্যন্ত কোএফিসিয়েন্ট অফ ভেরিয়েশনকে এক্সামাইন করেছি, এটা দেখার জন্য কি পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি ক্ষেত্রে ইন্টারস্টেট ডিসপ্যারিটিস হচ্ছে কিনা। থার্ড, তারপর আমি 2011-12 এর রুরাল আর আরবান সেক্টরের পপুলেশনকে মেজার করেছি লোয়েস্ট অ্যান্ড হাইয়েস্ট এমপিসি ক্লাসের উপর বেস করে। বেসিক্যালি আমি ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলকে হাইলাইট করেছি। নেক্সট অবজেক্টিভস এখানে 2004-05 থেকে 2011-12 পর্যন্ত ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলের পার্সেন্টেজ শেয়ার অফ ডিস্ট্রিবিউশন অফ ওয়ার্কফোর্সকে মেজার করেছি। এটা আইডেন্টিফাই করার জন্য 2004-05 থেকে 2011-12 পর্যন্ত ডিস্ট্রিবিউশন অফ ওয়ার্কফোর্সের পার্সেন্টেজ শেয়ারটা কতটা বেড়েছে ইন টার্মস অফ এমপ্লয়মেন্ট। আমার লাস্ট অবজেক্টিভস আমি মেজার করেছি স্টেট ওয়াইজ এক্সপেন্ডিচার অন এডুকেশন অ্যাজ আ পার্সেন্টেজ অফ টোটাল এমপিসি। এখান থেকে আমি দেখতে চাইছি 2011-12 থেকে 2016-17 পর্যন্ত টোটাল এমপিসি থেকে কত পার্সেন্ট ইন্ডিয়ার বিভিন্ন রাজ্যগুলোতে শিক্ষায় ব্যয় করেছে। এই প্রজেক্টে আমি ট্যাবুলেটেড আর গ্রাফিক্যাল রিপ্রেজেন্টেশন করেছি, কোরিলেশন এন্ড রিগ্রেশন রান করেছি পভার্টিকে মেজার করার জন্য। তারপর আমি কোএফিসিয়েন্ট অফ ভেরিয়েশন, যেটাকে আমরা সিভি বলি, সেটা ক্যালকুলেট করেছি এটা দেখার জন্য পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি ক্ষেত্রে আন্তঃরাজ্য বৈষম্য হচ্ছে কিনা। This project is based on data of monthly per capita expenditure, that is MPC, collected from NSA 66 and 68 round. আমার ফার্স্ট অ্যানালাইসিস এখানে 2011-12 এ ইন্ডিয়ার পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি আর পভার্টি রেশিওর মধ্যে ডেটা কালেক্ট করেছি। টেবিল থেকে দেখতে পাচ্ছি হরিয়ানা পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি দ্যাট ইজ 1,06,085, যেটা বেশি অন্যান্য স্টেটসের তুলনায়। বিহারের পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি দ্যাট ইজ 21,750, যেটা কম অন্যান্য রাজ্যের তুলনায়। এই ডেটা থেকে পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি অ্যান্ড পভার্টি রেশিওর মধ্যে কোরিলেশন রান করেছি। এটা দেখার জন্য পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি বাড়লে পভার্টি রেশিওর উপর কি এফেক্ট করবে। কোরিলেশন রান করার পর আমার কোরিলেশন কোএফিসিয়েন্টের ভ্যালু এসছে -0.469, যেটা নেগেটিভ। নেগেটিভ ভ্যালু আসা মানে আমরা বলতে পারি পভার্টি রেশিও আর পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপির মধ্যে ইনভার্স রিলেশনশিপ আছে, যেটা ইন্ডিকেট করছে হায়ার এনএসডিপি মে রিডিউস পভার্টি। তারপর আমি রিগ্রেশন রান করেছি এটাই দেখার জন্য যে ইন্ডিয়াতে পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি বাড়লে পভার্টি রেশিও কমছে কিনা। By running the regression of poverty ratio, that is P, on per capita NSDP, that is X, we get P equals to 31.174 minus 0.00019x. Here single star implies that T ratio of coefficient is statistically significant at 5% level. Double star implies that T ratio of coefficient is statistically significant at 1% level. So the result becomes poverty ratio is inversely related to per capita NSDP. এখান থেকেও আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি x এর কোএফিসিয়েন্ট নেগেটিভ এসছে, তার মানে x আর p এর মধ্যে ইনভার্স রিলেশনশিপ আছে। তাহলে এটা বলা যায় পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি দ্যাট ইজ x বাড়লে পভার্টি রেশিও দ্যাট ইজ p কমছে। ওভারঅল এস্টিমেশন থেকে আমি ফাইন্ড করতে পারলাম দ্যাট দ্য কোরিলেশন কোএফিসিয়েন্ট অ্যান্ড পার্টিকুলারলি রিগ্রেশন কোএফিসিয়েন্ট ইন্ডিকেট আ সিগনিফিকেন্টলি নেগেটিভ অ্যাসোসিয়েশন বিটুইন পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি and poverty ratio, which indicates higher per capita NSDP may reduce poverty. For better understanding, I would have calculated coefficient of variation for the year 2004-05 to 2011-12 to examine whether interstate disparity in per capita NSDP reduce over time or not in India. Second analysis 2004-05 থেকে 2011-12 এ স্টেট ওয়াইজ পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি ডেটা কালেক্ট করেছি। টেবিল থেকে আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি 2004-05 এ উত্তরপ্রদেশের পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি দ্যাট ইজ 2,31,029, যেটা বেশি অন্যান্য রাজ্যের থেকে। আর লোয়েস্ট এনএসডিপি দেখা যাচ্ছে গোয়াতে দ্যাট ইজ 10,999। 2011-12 এ দেখা যাচ্ছে হরিয়ানা হ্যাজ দ্য highest per capita NSDP that is 1,06,085 and Bihar has lowest per capita NSDP that is 21,750. 2004-05 থেকে 2011-12 এ per capita NSDP coefficient of variation calculate করেছি। coefficient of variation calculate করে আমি বেসিক্যালি এখানে interstate disparities কে এক্সামাইন করতে চাইছি। 2004-05 এ আমার কোএফিসিয়েন্ট অফ ভেরিয়েশনের ভ্যালু এসেছে 67.69%। অন্যদিকে 2011-12 এ আমার কোএফিসিয়েন্ট অফ ভেরিয়েশনের ভ্যালু এসেছে 42.32%। এখান থেকে বোঝা যাচ্ছে সময়ের সাথে কোএফিসিয়েন্ট অফ ভেরিয়েশন ফর পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি কমেছে। তাহলে আমি এখান থেকে ফাইন্ড করতে পারলাম যে পার ক্যাপিটা এনএসডিপি ক্ষেত্রে কোএফিসিয়েন্ট অফ ভেরিয়েশন ক্রমশ কমেছে, যেটা ইন্ডিকেট করছে ইন্ডিয়া আন্তঃরাজ্য বৈষম্য কমেছে। আমার থার্ড অ্যানালাইসিস 2011-12 এর পপুলেশনকে মেজার করেছি লোয়েস্ট অ্যান্ড হাইয়েস্ট এমপিসি ক্লাসের উপর বেস করে। MPC মানে monthly per capita expenditure, which is defined at the household level, that is household monthly consumer expenditure divided by household size. From the table, it can be seen that the average household size in the highest MPC class 95 to 100% is 3.41, which is found to be lower than the average household size of all class, that is 4.16 in the rural sector of West Bengal. On the other hand, in urban sector, the average household size, that is 5.54 in lowest MPC class 0 to 5%, is quite high than the average household size, that is 3.77. But opposite trend has been observed in the highest MPC class 95 to 100%, where average household size, that is 2.61, is quite low than the average household size, that is 3.77 of all classes. এখান থেকে আমার ফাইন্ডিং হচ্ছে রুরাল সেক্টরের এভারেজ ফ্যামিলি সাইজ অল ক্লাসেস ভ্যালু আছে 4.16, যেটা আরবান সেক্টরের ফ্যামিলি সাইজ অল ক্লাসেস ভ্যালু 3.77 এর থেকে বেশি। তারপর এটাও দেখা যাচ্ছে রুরাল সেক্টরে এভারেজ নাম্বার অফ অ্যাডাল্টস পার হাউসহোল্ড অল ক্লাসেস ভ্যালু 3.04, যেটা আরবান সেক্টরে এভারেজ নাম্বার অফ অ্যাডাল্ট পার হাউসহোল্ড অল ক্লাসেস ভ্যালুর থেকে বেশি। এভারেজ নাম্বার অফ চিলড্রেন পার হাউসহোল্ডের ক্ষেত্রেও একই ছবি দেখা যাচ্ছে। তাহলে এখান থেকে আইডেন্টিফাই করতে পারলাম কি পশ্চিমবঙ্গে অধিকাংশ মানুষ রুরাল এরিয়াতে বাস করে। টেবিল থেকে এটাও অবজার্ভ করতে পারলাম কি রুরাল সেক্টরের পার্সেন্টেজ অফ পপুলেশন 75.22%, যেটা 3 গুণ বেশি আরবান সেক্টরের পার্সেন্টেজ অফ পপুলেশন 24.78% এর থেকে। আমার ফোর্থ অ্যানালাইসিস এখানে সেক্টর ওয়াইজ ডিস্ট্রিবিউশন অফ ওয়ার্কফোর্স 2004-05 থেকে 2011-12 এর পর্যন্ত মেজার করেছি। এই টেবিলে টোটাল 4টে সেক্টরকে ইলাস্ট্রেট করেছি। ফার্স্ট এগ্রিকালচার, সেকেন্ড ম্যানুফ্যাকচারিং, থার্ড নন ম্যানুফ্যাকচারিং অ্যান্ড ফোর্থ সার্ভিস। এগ্রিকালচার সেক্টরে দেখা যাচ্ছে ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলের টোটাল ওয়ার্কফোর্স 2004-05 ছিল 49.0%, 2009-10 সেটা কমে 43.4% হয়েছে, আর 2011-12 সেটা আরও কমে 39.23% হয়েছে। ম্যানুফ্যাকচারিং সেক্টরে ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলের টোটাল ওয়ার্কফোর্স 2004-05 ছিল 16.7%, 2009-10 সেটা বেড়ে 18.4% হয়েছে, তারপর 2011-12 সেটা আরও বেড়ে 22.7% হয়েছে। নন ম্যানুফ্যাকচারিং সেক্টরের ক্ষেত্রে সেম পিকচার দেখা যাচ্ছে। 2004-05 5.0% ছিল, 2009-10 7.9% দেখা যাচ্ছে, আর 2011-12 দেখা যাচ্ছে সেটা বেড়ে 8.59% হয়েছে। সার্ভিস সেক্টরে দেখতে পাচ্ছি টোটাল ওয়ার্কফোর্স পার্সেন্টেজ অফ শেয়ার কম বেশি সেম রয়েছে। 2004-05 29.2% ছিল, 2009-10 সেটা বেড়ে 30.3% হয়েছে, আর 2011 সেটা আবার একটু কমে গিয়ে 29.51% হয়েছে। তাহলে এখান থেকে আমি ফাইন্ডিং হলো পশ্চিমবঙ্গে মোট কর্মশক্তি ভাগ কৃষি খাতে কমেছে, সেবা বিভাগে মোট কর্মশক্তি ভাগ কম বেশি সমান রয়েছে, কিন্তু উৎপাদন খাত এবং অউৎপাদন ক্ষেত্রে মোট কর্মশক্তি ভাগ বেড়েছে কর্মসংস্থানের ক্ষেত্রে। আমার ফিফথ অ্যানালাইসিস মেজার করেছি স্টেট ওয়াইজ এক্সপেন্ডিচার অন এডুকেশন অ্যাজ আ পার্সেন্টেজ অফ টোটাল এমপিসি। এই টেবিলে দেখা যাচ্ছে 2011-12 থেকে 2014-15 পর্যন্ত মহারাষ্ট্র সব থেকে বেশি শিক্ষায় ব্যয় করেছে, দ্যাট ইজ 20.3% মোট ব্যয়ের শতাংশ হিসাবে। তারপর আমাদের পশ্চিমবঙ্গ মোট ব্যয়ের শতাংশ হিসাবে শিক্ষায় ব্যয় করেছে 18.3%। অন্যদিকে 2015-16 দেখতে পাচ্ছি ছত্তিশগড় সব থেকে বেশি শিক্ষায় ব্যয় করেছে, সেটা হচ্ছে 19.0%। তারপর দেখা যাচ্ছে বিহারের ক্ষেত্রে 18.9% হয়েছে, কিন্তু আমাদের পশ্চিমবঙ্গের ক্ষেত্রে মোট ব্যয়ের শতাংশ হিসাবে শিক্ষায় ব্যয় অনেকটা কম, সেটা হলো 14.8%। আবার 2016-17 আমাদের পশ্চিমবঙ্গ শিক্ষায় ব্যয় বেড়ে হয়েছে 16.8%। তাহলে এখান থেকে আমি এটাই ফাইন্ড করতে পারলাম 2011-12 থেকে 2014-15 পর্যন্ত আমাদের পশ্চিমবঙ্গ দ্বিতীয় স্থানে ছিল, আর 2015-16 নবম স্থানে হয়, এবং 2016-17 সেটা বৃদ্ধিতে পশ্চিমবঙ্গ চতুর্থ স্থানে এসে দাঁড়ায়। The evidence presented in this project indicate the following aspects of economic changes in India over time. From the statistical analysis like the correlation coefficient and particularly regression analysis evidence a significantly negative association between per capita NSDP and poverty ratio across Indian states are found. So, we may conclude that higher per capita NSDP may reduce poverty as evidenced from the state level data of Indian states. In terms of interstate disparities, coefficient of variation reduces over time in respect of per capita NSDP. The percentage of population of rural sector, that is 75.22%, is found 3 times higher than the percentage of population in urban sector, that is 24.78% in West Bengal in the year 2011-12. Average family size is higher in rural sector than in urban sector. The average number of children is also higher in the rural sector compared to the urban sector. In terms of distribution of workforce in the year 2004-5 to 2011-12, we can conclude that the share in total workforce of West Bengal has declined in the agricultural sector, more or less remains same in the service sector, and in manufacturing sector share of workforce increases. In terms of state-wise expenditure on education as a share of total expenditure during the period 2011-12 to 2014-15, West Bengal was ranked second among 17 states. Thereafter, it slipped to 9th rank in the following 2015-16 years. It has, however, improved its rank to 4th position in the year 2016-17. I would like to make a heartfelt thanks to the following person for making this project a success: our respected principal madam for encouragement and support, teachers of the Department of Economics, including my supervisor of this project, for their guidance and encouragement and support, teachers of the other departments for their encouragement, to my friends for the teamwork in the collection of the report study material. Thank you.
Thank you, Meenat, for your very lucid and very nice presentation. You have covered a very wide area also, starting from the poverty ratio as well as the net state domestic product. You have covered the areas of there is a workforce, the variation of the workforce in the different regional variations in the different states. Also, you have focused on the expenses sustained on the education and how the West Bengal actually coming forward. So, a very good presentation. If there is any question on Mehnat's presentation, audience, please raise your question. Okay, we're proceeding to the last presentation. It will be presented by Rohan Das. Rohan, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. First of all, a very good evening to the respective principal madam, the respected teachers and everyone present here. So before I begin my topic, I would like to thank my teachers for giving this opportunity to present my topic here in this platform. My topic is Pandemic and Education, which is a descriptive paper. In this paper, I will discuss how COVID-19 has adversely affected the educational sector in various ways. It is of no doubt that not only the education sector, but also the other sectors of the economy have a deep impact of the COVID-19 outbreak. I think both pandemic and education are deeply related to each other. It is one of the most burning issues. My paper focuses about how the COVID-19 affected the education sector. I begin with the abstract of the topic. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic has created the largest disruption of educational systems in human history, affecting nearly 1.6 billion learners in more than 200 countries. The education sector got a huge shock due to the outbreak of COVID-19. The education system is still not at a mature state at both urban and rural area. Midday meal program is relatively a major factor connected to it, which is to attract the student to get education. Under these circumstances, when the nationwide lockdown was imposed, by the government on March 25, 2020 to stop the spread of COVID-19, it made a severe impact on the education system. A total of 1.3 billion learners around the world were unable to attend school, colleges, and universities. Approximately 320 million learners are affected in India alone. It has changed the traditional education system to the new educational technologies that are being used, in which the teaching and learning process are conducted in online mode. Social distancing and restrictive movement policies in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19 have significantly affected and drastically changed the traditional education practice. Reopening of schools after relaxation and re-restriction is another big challenge for us, with many new standard operating procedures put in place. The COVID-19 pandemic has enabled us with an opportunity to pave the way for introducing digital learning. There are both positive and negative impacts of COVID-19 on Indian education system. This topic generally aims to make an analysis of the impact of COVID-19 on education system. So next comes the introduction. The COVID-19 pandemic has altered each and everyone's life significantly. The outbreak was first identified in December 2019 in Wuhan in China. The countries around the world took many restrictive and responsive measures to stop the spread of virus. The following measures have included hand washing, wearing masks, maintaining social distancing, avoid mass gathering, etc. Lockdown and staying at home is only the strategy to break the strain and to flatten the curve and control the transmission of disease. Bhutan first declared the closure of schools and institutions and reduction of business hours during the second week of March 2020. The government of India announced the closure of all the educational institutions, including schools, colleges, universities, where state and CBSE board exams are not being conducted till March 31 to control the spread of coronavirus infection. The coronavirus pandemic is defining global health crisis of our time and the greatest challenge we have faced. The pandemic has affected educational system worldwide, leading to the near closure of school, colleges, and universities. The economic and social disruption caused by pandemic is devastating. Of millions of the people are at risk of falling into extreme poverty. My eyes tear up and my heart breaks up to describe and witness the COVID-19 outbreak. The whole world is going through an unprecedented crisis, which is like a curse for all. Our way of living has been turned upside down. The consequences of pandemic COVID-19 are observed in each and every sector of the world. The education sectors of India as well as the whole world are badly affected by this. It has created several impacts not only on the life of the students but also on the teachers. As the days are passing with no immediate solution to stop this outbreak, the closure of schools and universities is hugely affecting the learning process across the country. The structure of Indian education system, that is learning methodology, teaching techniques, and assessment methodology, is quite affected as a result in transition to online education. Indian government has announced the lockdown and closures of educational institutions as a logical solution to enforce social distancing with communities. The nationwide lockdown has a tremendous impact on the education system of the country, especially for students from rural areas. Since normally the Indian education system is dominated by classroom study, the present scenario has made the functioning of the educational system go very difficult. Objective of the study. The main objective of the study is to analyze the impacts of COVID-19 on Indian education system. The point highlighted in the topic are as follows. Number, the problem the Indian education system is facing and highlighting the role played by teachers and students. Number two, the positive impacts and negative impacts. Next, I come to methodology. The information presented in this topic are taken from various reports and articles based on the impact of COVID-19 on education. I have presented the topic according to my outlook about the impact of COVID-19 on education. Challenges in teaching and learning. Along with the transition from normal chalk and talk method of learning to online system, the users, both educators and learners, is facing many difficulties while accessing online method of study. Many countries have substantial issue with a reliable internet connection and access to digital devices. For a country like India, the economically backward children are unable to afford and access online learning devices. which is also an important factor. The online education poses a risk of exposure to increased screen time for the learner. Lack of parental guidance, especially for young learners, is another big challenge and a major factor. The vulnerable group consisting of students who are weak in learning face many difficulties. The level of academic performance of students are decreasing due to lack of consultation with teachers. Students' assessment are carried out online along with a lot of trial and error, uncertainty and confusion among the teachers, students, and parents. Various state-level board exams, recruitment exams, and university exams have been postponed across India due to the COVID-19 outbreak and lockdown. The education system across the country has been severely affected. All of us are going to a very tough phase. The online education system and its effect is yet to be explored more. So next point is impact of COVID-19 on education. First is the positive impacts. However, the impact of pandemic on education has few positive outcomes or advantages. They are as follows. Number one, COVID-19 has accelerated for adaptation of digital technologies by the teachers and students. It has encouraged all students and teachers to become more technological. As the physical and chalk and talk method is disrupted here, it has increased the digital literacy rate. Number three, efficient time management can also be related as students are able to manage their time more efficiently in online education. Teachers have also adopted to several new methods of teaching through PPT presentation, displaying videos, video conferences, slide presentations, using diagrams and all such things, which makes the class further more interesting to the students, which brings clarity to their concept and lead to better understanding. Number four, the attendance rate of students has increased in online classes, which is at normal rate in normal offline classes. I think it makes and develops the class more interesting. We the students are more able to analyze and clear our doubts efficiently. Next, I come to the negative impacts. The education sector has suffered a lot due to the outbreak of COVID-19. We are not at all ready for this sudden transition from face-to-face learning to online learning. It has also affected many students who belong to poor or lower middle class who do not have any internet facilities. This can be one of the disadvantages of the pandemic on education. The dropout rates of students has increased to an alarming rate, which is a negative factor. Many students who are financially poor cannot afford for a smartphone or access internet facility living in an urban area, which directly hamper their study. Government has also taken many new measures to resolve this matter. Number one, our Honorable Chief Minister of West Bengal, Srimati Mamata Banerjee, had recently given rupees 10,000 for buying tabs to the class 12 students belonging to the WBBSC board, which has benefited a large number of students coming from the weaker and the poorer section. Number two, student credit card system is also launched recently, by which every student will be benefited. A student can avail loan anytime for doing a particular course, which is also really an incredible measure. Number three, students who are studying in government school are getting free provision these days under the midday meal scheme, are really benefited. The furthermore negative impacts are as follows. Number one, there are many limitations of online classes. Many students have to face a lot of trouble due to network issues. Laboratory-based practical studies in subjects like chemistry, physics, biology, medical, etc. is very much important, which cannot be conducted in this pandemic period, which is again bringing a negative impact to students. Since it is not possible for the students to attend offline classes, a new development as a result of the COVID-19 is online examination, which is also a very integral part. It is very challenging task, not only for the student to give the exam, but also for the teachers and the authority to arrange the entire thing systematically. In this situation, we are really unable to return to the examination centers physically and appear for the exam. So many school, colleges, university resorted and implemented to take online exams. According to the opinion of many persons, conducting and giving online exam is like a blessing for students, as we are stress relieved and there is no burden of completing the syllabus for students as it is an online exam. But according to my opinion, it is completely a wrong concept who thinks that there is no stress in giving online exams. For the students, exam stress combined with pandemic stress is really a tough and challenging duty for us, and it makes a pretty hectic time. Number two, educational activity hampered. Schools are closed and classes have already been suspended. Different boards have already postponed the annual examinations and the entrance test across India. Number three, parents' role also play a vital role, as in rural and urban areas, some may not have the adequate level of education needed to guide their children in the house. Number 4, digital gadgets. Especially in rural areas, many students have limited or no internet access, and many students may not be able to access devices or proper internet connection. Number 5, create difference. The online teaching learning method creates a gap between rich versus poor and urban versus rural students. Number 6, unpreparedness for this sudden transition. Students and teachers are not prepared for this sudden transition. COVID-19 has really affected a large number of students. Next, I come to the observation and recommendation. Before the COVID-19 lockdown in India, no one even imagined that the image of the Indian educational institution could change so drastically. Schools that never allowed students to carry an electronic gadget turned into learning centers for online classes. Availability of electricity is a significant challenge to take advantages of the online education. In a recent 2017-18 survey, the Ministry of Rural Development found that only 47% of the Indian households receive 12 hours of electricity, and more than 36% of schools in India operate without electricity. This shows while students from the families with better standard of living can easily breach the transition to remote learning, whereas students from underprivileged background are likely to accede the inefficiency and lack of adaptation, either because of the inaccessibility of the technology or by other factors. Non-availability of technical infrastructure and irregular internet connectivity all across India is the biggest challenge for students and for the teachers. This pandemic has revealed some of the major loopholes in the Indian education system. The closure of schools has made a severe impact on marginalized students. One of the critical trends that can be followed is the need to have a combined approach to online learning with increasing investment on the upgrading of the technology infrastructure of the education institutions. So now I come to the conclusion. COVID-19 has impacted immensely the education sector of India. Though it has created many challenges, various opportunities are also evolved. The Indian government and different stakeholders of education have explored the possibility of open and distance learning by adopting different digital technologies to cope with the present COVID-19 situation. Even if the COVID-19 crisis stretches longer, there is an urgent need to take an effort on maximum utilization of online platform. The creative strategy should be taken to ensure that all the children should have sustainable access to learning in this present scenario. Here I come to the end of my topic. I would like to add some few more points to it. The year 2020 is going to be the most remarkable period of 21st century, with many deaths all over the world and degradation of the economy. Education sector is also one of the most affected sectors. We shall obviously overcome this pandemic situation with the grace of God. Last but not the least, I want to really thank my principal madam, Dr. Shoma Bandyopadhyay, and my respected teachers of the department who have guided me a lot about this topic and provided their valuable suggestions regarding this topic. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and everyone present here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohan, for putting your focus on a very burning issue nowadays, that is the very pandemic and the impact on the education. We have described the positive impacts as well as the negative impacts. Definitely, we hope for the best. The coming days,
thank you, sir.
Better day will come, and definitely we can eliminate all these problems. So, if there is any question on the Rohan's paper. So I hope there is no question. So now I would request Dr. Kundu to put your observation and proceed further. Thank you.
Thank you, Niladri, for conducting this presentation session, and thanks to our student presentators, Ikshita, Anindo, Mehnaz, and Rohan. Now, I am requesting my departmental colleague, Dr. Deepa Mukherjee, to offer the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everybody. It is my privilege to offer vote of thanks on behalf of my department. First of all, I extend my sincere thanks to our respected Principal Madam, Dr. Shoma Bandyopadhyay, and our respected IQAC coordinator, Dr. Kuntal Chattopadhyay, for encouraging us to conduct this kind of events. I would also like to thank the paper presenters, without whose active participation this seminar would not have been possible. A special thank is due to our departmental head, Dr. Soumitra Kundu, for his incessant effort to make this seminar successful. I would also like to thank all my departmental colleagues for their continuous support in organizing this seminar. Thanks to my other colleagues also, whose presence has added a different dimension to today's seminar. I would also like to thank the technical team for providing technical support. And last but not the least, I extend my heartfelt thanks to all my students who are the main source of our inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you all for your presence in the first day of the student seminar of the Department of Economics. The second part of this seminar will be held on 23rd July, that is Friday at 5:30 p.m. We are looking forward for your presence and your encouragement on that day also. So with my heartfelt thanks to Principal Madam and all the respected faculty members and the students, I declare the today's seminar closed.